It all starts in Eastern Europe a few years ago, in a city completely devastated by war. Amidst the rubble, a man sits against a wall, severely wounded and holding a gun. It is Nexade. He has a bullet hole right in his chest that looks pretty bad. The ground is covered in blood and it seems he doesn't have much strength left. Lilia appears, a little girl with a stuffed rabbit, crying and begging him not to die. But he orders her to get the hell out of there and forget about him. The little girl is terrified, not knowing what to do amidst so much chaos and fire. Nick screams at her to move at once unless she wants to end up dead right there too. Lilia has no choice and runs away while her tears won't stop falling. The man is left alone, watching the girl disappear into the ruins. He bows his head, accepting that this is his definitive end. Suddenly, footsteps are heard approaching very calmly over the pavement. It is a guy in a trench coat walking through the rubble as if he owns the place. It is Dahlia, who arrives accompanied by a group of armed soldiers. Dahlia looks him straight in the eye and drops his name in a mocking tone. Nick Sab stands in front of him and tells him that he really was a monster. Just like the rumors said, Dahlia has a scar on his face and a look that gives off a pretty bad vibe. And the thing is, the guy took out an entire army by himself before they managed to corner him. The city keeps burning in the background while the hitman prepares to finish the job. Dia mocks him, saying it is pathetic that someone like him chooses to die for an insignificant bond. He pulls out his weapon, points it straight at his head, and asks if he has any last words. Instead of begging for his life, Nixadi simply laughs in his face. The killer says goodbye with a mocking gesture without showing even a bit of fear. Dahlia tells him they will see each other in hell and pulls the trigger without hesitation. 17 years pass and the scene changes to a dark garage in the present day. A giant guy with a golf club is threatening some young delivery boys. One of them, Kay's partner, is terrified because he didn't expect the job to be so dangerous. The thug who is smoking laughs and says the assignment is still just transport, so he doesn't understand the big drama. The big guy lunges at them, fed up with the boys trying to back out. The poor guy panics completely upon learning. They have to pick up a killer from a crime scene. The giant raises the golf club, ready to teach them a lesson. He reminds them that they are messengers, and if someone pays, they have to take whatever to wherever. He pulls out a knife and threatens the boy to shut his mouth once and for all. But out of nowhere, a hand grabs the giant's arm with impressive strength. The guy freezes. He didn't see the young man in the cap coming. It is Kay, who with a calm smile says that he will handle the job. He only asks him to let his senpai go while the other cannot believe the madness he is proposing. Key makes a gesture to him that everything will be fine, joking that hitmen don't just kill anyone. Night falls over the city and the full moon illuminates the massive skyscrapers. Inside one of the buildings, a bodyguard gets his head blown off by a precise shot. The men inside panic, trying to understand where the attack is coming from. But they have no time for anything because another shot pierces another guy's skull in seconds. Those who remain freeze, realizing they are trapped with a legendary assassin. He freezes upon seeing the hole in the wall. He cannot believe the bullet went through it as if it were paper. It is an impact from a 50 cal. A piece of drywall is nothing against that kind of firepower. The room is a graveyard. There are bodies lying everywhere, and the man responsible is still standing, there as if nothing happened. Moments earlier, Dahlia had entered by kicking the door open with a silenced pistol in his hand. One of the thugs tried to use a table as a shield, screaming not to underestimate him just for being a hitman. But Diane didn't care in the slightest and aimed with a calmness that was terrifying. The Yakuza panicked completely, trying to draw their weapons, but they were too slow for a professional like him. Dahlia fired through the table without blinking, hitting everyone with surgical precision. He walked among the corpses, complaining about the smell of the Yakuza, which according to him stuck to his nose. He kept shooting at point-blank range to ensure no one was left alive on that floor. He stopped for a moment in front of a table full of bottles and an ice bucket. With total tranquility, he submerged the hot barrel of his pistol into the ice to cool it down as if it were part of his daily routine. That is when Key enters the scene and encounters the massacre head-on. The boy tries to hide, but Dahlia detects him immediately and points at his head. Key jumps with his hands up, breaking into a cold sweat and screaming that he is just the messenger hired to pick him up. Key tries to maintain his composure and asks if he is Dahlia while trying not to look at the bodies. Dahlia observes him with contempt. A messenger, he lets out in an icy voice. Kay nods with a nervous smile and adjusts his cap, trying to hide the terror he feels inside. It is already night and the highway is full of cars under a full moon that watches over the city. Kay drives at full speed down the road, wanting to get away from that building as soon as possible. The atmosphere inside the car is incredibly heavy. Key is tense at the wheel while Dahlia rides in the back seat in total silence. The boy sneaks a glance through the rearview mirror, feeling the veteran's murderous gaze. Dahlia notices him watching and Kay quickly averts his eyes, stammering that it's nothing. On the inside, Key cannot help but think that this guy emanates an incredibly strong aura of death. The scar on Dahlia's face stands out under the city lights, while he maintains a stone expression. Finally, Ki breaks the silence and tells him he has a question that won't let him rest. He tells him that when he arrived to pick him up, he passed by the first floor of the building, saw corpses of women and children lying on the floor, and asked if they were part of the contract too. Dahlia answers him with absolute coldness without taking his eyes off the window. He says that if they screamed, they were going to be a nuisance, and that for him, killing extras comes at no additional cost. Ki smiles in a strange way. You are even worse than the rumors. Totally ruthless, he comments in a low voice. Then he drops a name that makes the tension rise to the absolute maximum. Funeral flowers. Dahlia reacts immediately, asking him how a simple messenger knows that secret name. Ki explains that each of them has a code name based on a flower. It refers to an elite global group of assassins known as the Funeral Flowers. Dahlia is left thinking, cursing his boss for going around talking about things he shouldn't with strangers. But Kay doesn't stop and keeps talking about the veteran hitman's past. He asks him about the scar on his face, assuming it must be the work of someone very dangerous. He tells him that Mark proves there are people out there capable of hurting, even a member of the legendary Funeral Flowers. Dahlia stares at him, starting to suspect that this boy is no ordinary messenger. He maintains a somber expression, almost as if he is remembering something from another life, and finally he drops the bomb. He says that a long time ago there was a man in that very same group just like him. Dahlia begins to remember a legendary man in the world of assassination, someone who carried the code name of Nixie. Nixade is another name for belladonna, a flower that contains a deadly neurotoxin. In their language, it means a gift of death. Living up to his name, that man was basically a soul harvester in human form, unstoppable and lethal. But even the best make mistakes. That idiot decided to defy the organization's orders and paid dearly for it. Dahlia remembers arrogantly that Nixade lost his mind over a brat, and that at the end of the day, it was he himself who killed him. Ki lets out a small mocking chuckle while driving, which finally exhausts the hitman's patience. Dahlia puts the barrel of his pistol against the back of his neck and tells him that this will be the last story he will hear before going to the afterlife. Ki puts on a face like he doesn't understand anything, asking what the hell he is talking about in a mock-frightened tone. The metallic click of the weapon is heard as Dahlia prepares to pull the trigger from the backseat. The veteran explains to him that his way of driving is perfect for detecting surveillance, something a simple Yakuza messenger would never know how to do. Dahlia notes that despite his attempts to appear nervous, the boy doesn't have a single trace of real fear. Ki remains in silence, realizing that his acting is no longer of any use against someone so experienced. Dahlia states that when people get scared, their body releases a very specific scent, but his is completely dry and calm. Who are you really, and where do you come from? The hitman demands to know as the tension reaches boiling point. Ki keeps his hands firm on the steering wheel, waiting for the exact moment to make his move. His fingers tighten over the leather of the wheel. Patience has run out for both of them. Ki raises a hand with a carefree gesture, while Dahlia watches him with wide eyes. Dahlia begins to suspect that something is wrong, but it is already too late to react. Kay slams his foot on the brake suddenly, making the tires screech against the asphalt. The car skids violently in the middle of the empty highway, creating a curtain of smoke and rubber marks. Through the mirror, Dahlia sees Kay's true face, red eyes loaded with an overwhelming murderous intent. The impact of the braking throws everything forward. Dahlia cannot believe the boy's reaction speed. Bam! A blunt thud is heard as the fight breaks out inside the moving vehicle. Dahlia is forced to jump out of the car while it keeps skidding down the road. The veteran manages to land on his feet with surprising agility for his age, preparing for the counterattack. Kay loses his cap in the air as he lunges at Dahlia with a ferocity the hitman didn't expect. Ki flies through the air with his eyes glowing a crimson red, moving like a true demon. In the blink of an eye, Ki draws a knife and lunges straight for the veteran killer's neck. Dal tries to fire his heavy Desert Eagle, but the boy is simply too fast. Slash! A blue flash cuts through the air as Kay makes a precise and swift cut. Ki strikes Dahlia's weapon at the exact moment, just as the hitman was about to pull the trigger. Dahlia lets out a growl of rage upon seeing that his master move has been neutralized. In a single second, Kay's blow has damaged the pistol's mechanism, leaving it completely useless for the rest of the combat. Both land on the highway, surrounded by smoke and brake marks, measuring each other in a dance of death. Ki explains to him with total calmness that Desert Eagles are powerful weapons but delicate against lateral impacts. With a mocking smile, he tells him that those types of blows are the perfect breeding ground for the weapon to jam. Dahlia is left in shock upon realizing the boy struck that exact spot in barely a fraction of a second. Furious, the veteran screams at him not to underestimate him and pulls out metal claws for hand-to-hand combat. Kay's hands move at a speed the human eye can barely follow, intercepting the attack. Clash, both collide in an explosion of sparks and brute force in the middle of the road. Dahlia feels a sharp pain and realizes with horror that Key has damaged the nerves in his arm. Key passes right by him with his red eyes glowing in the darkness, leaving the veteran hitman completely defenseless. Kay launches a devastating upward strike that connects directly with Dahlia's jaw, making him lose his balance completely. Without giving him a breather, Key continues his assault with a series of movements, so fast that the veteran hitman can't even see them coming. Bam! A direct strike to the chest sends Dahlia crashing to the ground, making it clear that Kay is not just using brute force but a surgical technique. Dahlia spits blood, realizing that each impact is designed to destroy his nerve endings from the inside. It is a terrifying sensation. With every blow, Dahlia feels his nerves being devoured, losing control of his own body. The effect is identical to that of the belladonna poison, the lethal signature that only one man in the world mastered to perfection. Key rises over his fallen opponent, a demonic silhouette projecting behind him, and his red eyes glowing with hatred. What the hell are you? Dahlia stammers from the ground, completely terrified by the boy's presence. Dahlia freezes upon hearing Kay call him by a private nickname. Nose fetish freak. It can't be. Only one person knew that nickname. Key smiles coldly and tells him, "Did you finally figure it out? Long time no see, old friend." Dahlia stutters that it's impossible. The man he is referring to should be dead and buried a long time ago. Kay mocks Dahlia's supposed bravery, reminding him that he only showed up to deliver the finishing blow when he was already half dead. Dahlia remembers that dark alley where he saw Nixie's lifeless body. He would swear on his life that that man died that day. "Oh, I died, I can assure you of that," Kay confesses, as the light of the full moon illuminates his face, charged with determination and a gaze that doesn't belong to this world. He adds, "But somehow I came back to life, and I've come back for a reason." Dahlia cannot process what he is hearing. The idea of reincarnation or a resurrection sounds like pure madness. Kay's knife remains driven into the ground as a silent reminder of the death the hitman just managed to avoid for now. Key prepares to finish what he started, moving with a lethal grace that only the best assassins possess. Trembling, Dahlia asks him what his ultimate goal is. "Vengeance? Is that why you've come back from hell?" he inquires desperately. Key admits that vengeance wouldn't be bad at all, but his true purpose is much deeper than simple hatred. On the ground lies Lilia's pink stuffed rabbit, a symbol of the innocence that the organization ripped away from him in his past life. "There is something I need to take back from you, bastards," Key says with a somber look full of resolution. He makes a final promise while the emblem of his old organization burns in his mind. He will burn Garden to ashes until nothing is left. The guy is screaming like crazy. He cannot believe. Kay is saying he is going to destroy his entire organization all by himself. Kay looks at him with absolute coldness. He knows the number of Garden's expert assassins has grown, but he doesn't care. "You alone aren't going to change anything," the man insists as blood begins to gush from his neck, but Kay isn't there to make small talk. With one swift slash, he finishes him off while blood splatters everywhere. The body falls lifeless and Key stands there for a second, surrounded by red petals falling like snow. "Watch from hell," he sentences, with his red eyes glowing intensely in the darkness. We cut to a massive meeting room. The high-ranking leaders of Garden are sitting around a kilometer-long table. There is Dahlia, presiding over the table from his throne with an elegance that commands respect and fear at the same time. He drops the news bluntly. One of their high-ranking men was assassinated last night. His assistant listens to the news without moving a single muscle, maintaining that empty and professional look. Dahlia asks her if she remembers her benefactor from when she was a child in the war. He is referring to Nexaid. Dahlia boasts about having eliminated him himself while we see memories of little Lilia. He wonders if it was the feds or some foreign force that dared to attack. He becomes pensive, drumming his fingers on the table. He knows this attack was nothing ordinary. He rubs his temple, analyzing the board. Whoever it is, they have stepped into his new backyard. Japan keeps slamming the table, impatient. This incident is getting on his nerves more than he admits. To him, this new enemy is just a weed that needs to be pulled before it grows any further. He gives the direct order to his assistant. "Inform the rest of the funeral flowers immediately. Give them 1 month to clean up this mess." Meanwhile, in the present, Kay walks toward the school as if nothing had happened. But suddenly, the memory of a brutal explosion flashes through his mind. He remembers that his childhood was not normal. By the time he started to reason, he was already in the middle of a war. He was barely a lone and frightened child, fleeing through the rubble of a bombed city, a war orphan who didn't even know his parents' faces, waiting for an inevitable end until a man from Garden appeared, through the smoke and pointed a gun straight at him. He gave him a choice: die right there in misery, or start killing people to survive. The guy held out the weapon, marking the beginning of a path he could never escape. Little Kay didn't even understand the magnitude of the question, but his instinct was stronger. He simply grabbed the gun. He chose the option to live, no matter the cost. The roar of the first shot shattered the silence of his innocence. There was no turning back. In Garden, they burned it into him that he could not hesitate. If he didn't pull the trigger first, he would die. "Don't stop moving!" They would scream at him during training while he ran through the shooting range. Little by little, he came to understand that Garden wasn't just a bunch of hitmen, but something much bigger. That emblem became his only identity for the next 20 years. The organization claimed to have a noble mission, to maintain world order at any cost. Their targets were usually dictators and powerful people who corrupted the system from the shadows. They eliminated terrorists and drug lords across the globe, believing themselves to be the saviors of the world. Key became their best weapon, executing whoever he was ordered to without asking a single question. He convinced himself that each assassination was a necessary evil to save countless innocent lives. He transformed into a perfect killing machine, doling out that supposed justice on command. But his life of precision ground to a halt when he was ordered to hunt down a little girl and a traitor. That was when everything changed. After decades of service, that was the night his world began to crumble. Truly, Lilia looked at him terrified. Key was wounded and pale, realizing he had just signed his own death warrant. Back then, I turned my back on Garden's orders. The nerve gas was already destroying my system, and I knew I had little time left. My hand wouldn't stop shaking. I practically had one foot in the grave while trying to flee with the girl. I handed her a note and told her a contact would get her out of there if we managed to reach the meeting point. I wanted her to have a new life far away from all of this. With my eyes bloodshot, I begged her to run. At least she would have a chance to escape this hell. I wondered why the hell I was doing something as stupid as sacrificing myself for her. But Lilia had no intention of leaving me behind. She tore her dress with determination, ignoring my warnings. She flatly refused to leave without me. Despite her size, her will was unshakable. She stared at me with those green eyes and asked me what she had to do to save me. I closed my eyes for a moment, exhausted and feeling my senses fail one after another. It was those eyes that finally shattered my cold assassin's logic and forced me to keep fighting. We took refuge in a ruined shack as the sun began to rise faintly over the city. I woke up surrounded by hundreds of empty vials. They were eye drops containing traces of atropine, the only thing that could counteract the gas. I couldn't believe it. We had less than 20 minutes, and she managed to gather all of that by herself to save me. Lilia came running toward me with her stuffed rabbit, celebrating that my color was finally returning to normal. Her hands and her shoes were destroyed from running so much through the rubble looking for those medicines. She didn't care about risking her own life, just to not let me die alone in that abandoned place. I asked her if she didn't regret throwing away her chance of survival, just to save a guy like me. She just winked at me and dropped a bombshell. She didn't need that chance because from now on, I was going to protect her. I tried to be realistic and reminded her that I was an assassin, not her family, and certainly not her guardian. Lilia gave me a glaring look, clearly upset by my lack of tact at that moment. In the end, I gave in. There is nothing worse than owing a favor to a child and walking around like it's nothing. I placed my hand on her head and made her a promise. I would protect her until she was truly free. She stared at me for a second before bursting into a happy laugh, sealing the deal. "Yes, it's a promise," she shouted with a sincere smile. It was the first time I ever truly promised something. Thump. Suddenly, a blow snaps me back to reality. It's my sister Misaki screaming at me to wake up. The transition was so abrupt that I almost fell out of bed. What a way to start the day. "What's wrong, Misaki?" "It's barely morning," I stammer, still half dazed from sleep. Turns out it's already 7:30 and I am going to be incredibly late for school. And years have passed since Nixie died. Misaki won't stop scolding me from the window. She says lately I've been oversleeping too much. I sat there processing everything. For some reason now, I am living the life of a high school student. She stared at me with a suspicious look. She says ever since I fell down the stairs, I've been very weird. She mentioned that last night I arrived late and my clothes smelled like smoke. I tensed up immediately. Of course, I had to set the car on fire to leave no trace of what happened with Dahlia the night before. She asked me very seriously if I was hanging out with dangerous people or something like that. I had to improvise. A fake laugh and spin her a story about a supposed barbecue with friends that lasted for hours. She found it odd because according to her, I hated vegetables. I told her my taste changed because of the hit to the head. I even threw in a cheap scientific explanation about the brain so she would buy it once and for all. Misaki stayed silent for a good while, taking in my strange and detailed explanation. In the end, she told me to come down quickly because breakfast was getting cold. "He really did become weird," she murmured. I let out a sigh of relief when she closed the door. This girl is much smarter than she looks. Anyway, even though on the outside my life looks like that of any normal, ordinary teenager, looking at this family photo, it's still hard to believe this is my new reality after 17 years. I'm still processing the fact That I died 17 years ago and somehow my consciousness ended up in this young body. I caressed the family portrait resting on the shelf, feeling a strange disconnection from the faces staring back at me. It's not that I simply stole this body. The memories and emotions of the original, Keiki Saragi, still vibrate strongly inside me. This whole mess started 10 days ago with a fall down the stairs, but the exact moment of the accident is a complete blank in my mind. I find it absurd and unscientific to think that a blow to the head activated my memories of a past life as an elite assassin. While I was deep in thought, a notification rang out in my room. My laptop had just received something important. I put the photo back in its place. No matter how I got here, now I have a clear objective and things to resolve immediately. My gaze became cold and determined. The instinct of the old shadow was fully awakening after so much time. I put on my headphones and sat in front of the screen to see what information my contact had managed to extract. The message was clear. The data analysis was ready. My old colleague was complaining about how difficult it was to decrypt that information. Everything centered on the memory chip I snatched from Dahlia before everything went to shit that night. I remembered the moment I finished off that target. Blood still stained the floor while I searched for what I needed. I rummaged through the corpse's clothes until I found the item containing the key information. It was a golden pocket watch, a perfect and elegant hiding place for an object as valuable as it was dangerous. Upon opening it, the secret compartment was revealed, where the memory card with the organization's secrets was hidden. In the present, I told my contact that he was as fast as always. It was worth tracking down each of my old acquaintances. The guy on the other end of the line let out a nervous chuckle. He was in shock because I contacted him after more than 10 years of silence. He confessed to me that he wasn't sure if it was really me, but the fact that I took out Dahlia erased all his doubts. On the screen appeared the photo of a man and a little girl with a red mark. They were the victims I refused to eliminate. He reminded me that 17 years ago, I defied a direct order from Garden to save that father and his daughter, and that I died for it. My contact didn't understand why I was baring my fangs at the organization, again after spending so much time in hiding. "Is it because of that girl, Lilia?" he asked. My heart skipped a beat upon hearing that name after nearly 2 decades of guilt. The memory hit me hard. I left her behind while Garden took her away, leaving her stuffed animal forgotten on the cold ground. During all these years, the organization has kept her captive like a trophy, a display piece for their own political purposes. But the reality behind the scenes was very different. Lilia lived practically in a golden cage without a single shred of freedom. The reports we managed to intercept said they treated her with extreme harshness, completely ignoring her humanity. My contact hit the nail on the head. My only purpose now is to get her out of Garden's clutches, no matter the cost. The image of little Lilia hugging her pink rabbit is what gives me the strength to move forward with this suicidal plan. I closed my eyes for a moment, trying to contain the rage. I felt thinking about everything she has had to suffer because of me. I remembered her laughter, the only light I saw in my life of shadows, and I swore that I would see her smile that way again someday. When I opened my eyes again, my expression was once more that of a killing machine, icy and without a trace of mercy. "You don't need to know," I answered him flatly. He just reminded me of our golden rule. Never pry where you're not invited. The hacker fell silent for a moment on the other end of the line, knowing he wouldn't get anything else out of me. With a final click, he resigned himself to my usual stubbornness. "Understood. You're still as cold as ever," he murmured. A new file opened on my monitor, finally revealing the crucial information I had been waiting for so long. The chip contained a list of Dahlia's next targets. The first name that appeared was hers, Akari Sidhu. I analyzed every detail of her face on the screen. This girl was the key piece to reaching the deepest depths of Garden. The investigation led me to St. Agnes Academy for Women, an elite place where secrets are kept under lock and key. The sun shone over the luxurious campus while students chatted animatedly at the entrance of the prestigious school. One figure stood out among all the rest as she crossed the entrance arch with a natural elegance. Her classmates said goodbye to her with respect and much admiration. "See you tomorrow, Sidhu-san," they shouted from afar. Akari Sidhu turned around with a perfect and kind smile. "Yes, goodbye, everyone. Have a safe trip home," she replied sweetly. Akari Sidhu walked with a natural elegance, catching everyone's eye while her classmates followed her with their gaze. The echo of the other girls' sighs of admiration filled the air as she passed. To them, Akari was the absolute ideal of perfection. Not too far away was me, hidden under a cap and my red jacket, observing her every move coldly. On my screen, her full profile appeared. Akari Sidhu, 17 years old, daughter of the deceased third boss of the powerful Sidhu clan. The reports described her as the heiress to one of the largest Yakuza syndicates in Japan, a family with a history bathed in blood. She was the only daughter of a criminal dynasty. And according to the data I recovered from Dahlia, she was the woman Garden intended to eliminate. For now, I am just an ordinary student in the eyes of the world. But my true enemy is a global organization of Assassin's Garden, possesses massive influence, controlling political and business elites in dozens of nations from the deepest shadows. Their executors are not ordinary men. Each of them possesses special inhuman traits that turn them into lethal weapons. Knowing that I cannot face them directly with my bare hands at this moment, I decided to use this girl's crisis as leverage. I need to build a solid and strategic foundation if I truly want to keep my promise, to burn Garden to its foundations. I began to follow her discreetly as she walked along the sidewalk, keeping enough distance so as not to raise suspicion. Found it ironic that a Yakuza's daughter would attend such a refined school for young ladies. Her father must have adored her too much. With a half smile, I thought about how tedious it must be for her bodyguards to protect her in an environment so far out of their element. "Hello, bodyguard," I greeted calmly when I felt an imposing presence blocking my path in a lonely corner. The man, a muscular guy with eyes that glowed with a supernatural orange hue, cracked his knuckles with a threatening look. "A brat who has never held a weapon is going to end up eaten alive," he growled, warning me that this world is not for children. My gaze turned icy and a defiant smile formed on my face. I was more than ready for my grand return to that bloody world. We moved deeper into the alley, away from the eyes of passers-by. "This will be enough distance," the bodyguard sentenced. He rolled up his shirt sleeves slowly, demanding to know who I worked for and why I was following the young Akari. Actually, I didn't plan on going after her specifically, I replied with total sincerity, though I knew he wouldn't believe me. The man let out a snort of incredulity, showing the scars on his arm as he prepared for the imminent combat. "You don't need to be honest," he said in a husky voice while clenching his fists. "I'll beat the whole truth out of you." He launched a fierce attack loaded with murderous intent, but my shadow reflexes allowed me to react before he could touch me. Key looks at him with a calmness that drives him crazy, thinking that this boxing style is way too predictable. The bodyguard Katajiri lunges with everything, unleashing a flurry of blows left and right. The big guy starts to get frustrated because the brat is keeping up with his rhythm all too well, but Kei makes a quick movement with his feet to change the distance and throw him off. Katajiri throws a right hook, screaming for me not to play with him, putting all his strength into the impact. But Kei intercepts it in midair, grabbing his wrist with surgical precision. In a blink, the protagonist uses the very momentum of the attack to completely destabilize him. And before the guy can react, Kei grabs him directly by the neck. He slams him against the ground without any mercy, knocking the wind out of him instantly. Katajiri can barely let out a groan while remaining totally immobilized under the pressure. Kei looks down at him and tells him to calm down, that he is not his enemy. The bodyguard can only grit his teeth, realizing this boy plays in another league. Suddenly, a firm voice stops the fight. It is Akari Sadu appearing at the end of the alley. Katajiri, still on the ground, tries to warn the young heiress to be very careful. She walks toward them, without showing even a shred of fear before the violent scene in front of her. With great elegance, Akari orders the stranger to release Katajiri at once. Key is a bit impressed. He notices the girl has nerves of steel to be standing there. He agrees to free him, but sets the condition that she has to sit down and listen to him. He lets the guy go and throws out an almost comical proposal. "Let's go have some tea." Katajiri explodes with rage. Akari closes her eyes and thinks about it for a moment, analyzing if this boy is hiding something important. Finally, she accepts and asks him to accompany her, turning around with a natural authority. The three of them leave the dark alley to look for a more suitable place to talk. They end up at a place called Sadhana Sabanka, a cafe bar with a rather quiet atmosphere. Ko settles in and comments that the place doesn't seem very fitting for a young lady like her. Katajiri is fuming, but Akari stops him dead in his tracks, asking to get straight to the point. While the tea arrives at the table, the tension among the three becomes almost palpable. She takes a sip with all the calmness in the world and asks him directly what it is he wants. Kai gets serious and lets her know that she is not his target, but rather the assassin who is coming for her. He tells them that they surely already know someone is following them because of the amount of security they carry, but he makes one thing clear to them: that bodyguard won't be able to protect her from the funeral flowers. Upon hearing that name, Akari freezes. It is a name that commands terror in the underworld. Key explains that they are elite assassins, capable of wiping out entire Yakuza clans in a direct fight. She stares at him, trying to figure out what kind of person she has in front of her. She demands to know who he really is and how he knows such dangerous and classified information. Key clarifies that he isn't exactly an ally. He is simply the enemy of their enemies. He proposes a deal. He will take care of the assassin, and in exchange he gets to live in the Sidu mansion. Katajiri completely loses his temper and slams the table, outraged by the brat's audacity. But Kei throws him a warning glance, telling him in an icy tone that he better not try anything. In that instant, Ki releases a bloodlust so dense that the atmosphere is tinted with a red aura. The bodyguard freezes, feeling a primal terror that leaves him speechless. Katajiri slumps into his chair, totally overwhelmed by the monstrous presence he just felt. Akari, though affected, maintains her composure and asks him why she should trust him. Kei starts dropping dark facts about an incident in Yokohama, where 3 executives were eliminated by a funeral flower. Katajiri turns cold upon hearing it. That incident was never made public, so he doesn't understand how he knows so much. The boy details that the victims had their heads blown off with a .50 caliber Desert Eagle. Kei finally reveals the code name of the person responsible, Dahlia. The bodyguard demands to know where he got such confidential information. Kei places a pistol on the table and drops the bombshell. He was the one who took care of Dahlia. He suggests they send the bullet's rifling marks for analysis to confirm. He is telling the truth. He explains that even the evidence cleaners were eliminated by him after the fight. Katajiri shows incredulity and asks if he really killed them all by himself. Kei replies that if his target were the girl, he wouldn't have gone to so much trouble to speak with them. Akari observes him intently with her blue eyes, trying to detect any lie. The young heiress decides to give him a vote of confidence and take him at his word. She orders an immediate return to the mansion and tells Katajiri to prepare the car. Shortly after, the group arrives at the traditional residence of the Sidhu clan as the sun sets. Once settled in the study, Akari rests while the tension keeps floating in the air. Katajiri insists that it's madness to let such a suspicious guy into their own home. Meanwhile, Kei enters the room, commenting on how impressive all the mansion's security is. He gets distracted, looking at the antiques in the hallway, and asks if the ceramics are authentic. The bodyguard explodes and yells at him for wandering around where he doesn't belong. Unfazed, Kei recites the entire security layout, from the guards at the gate to the ones on the cameras. Katajiri is left speechless upon realizing the boy analyzed their entire defense in seconds. Kei mocks them a bit, saying their bulletproof vests are basically a good luck charm against what's coming. Akari observes him in silence, thinking that the guy has seen absolutely everything in just a few minutes. Kei's tone changes to a more serious one, and he advises them to get everyone out of the house immediately. In the city sewers, a rat runs in the middle of a deathly silence. Suddenly, an elegant heel steps into a puddle in the dark, announcing a sinister presence. It is Dahlia walking through the tunnel in a black kimono with a calmness that makes your hair stand on end. The old woman shows a maniacal smile while holding a sword, ready to claim her next victim. Back at the mansion, Kei insists they must evacuate because the enemy is no ordinary assassin. Katajiri, stubborn, yells at him, asking why the hell they should listen to a stranger. Kei responds coldly that against a funeral flower, they are useless and would only die in vain. The bodyguard grabs him furiously, saying they are more than ready to give their lives for Akari. But the young heiress intervenes and asks her escort to do exactly what the boy says. She looks at him with absolute calmness and asks him to please trust her judgment this one time. With no other choice, Katajiri nods and agrees to carry out the orders. The clan guards who were guarding the exterior receive the order to retreat and abandon their posts. Katajiri is left alone in the living room, sitting on the floor after sending everyone home. He unsheathes his own sword slightly, determined to act his own way if the situation gets complicated. Akari is left alone with Kei, and he notices that she has turned out to be much more cooperative than he expected. The girl confesses that she knew her guards wouldn't be of much use against an assassin of that level. She believes that the only way to deal with a professional assassin is by hiring another one just like them. Kei looks at her with curiosity and asks her what makes her so sure that he is one. Akari explains that the reason for her suspicion is that she has already run into a real assassin in the past. She says that the look Kei had when defeating Katajiri was identical to that of that executioner. A look that doesn't focus on the future or the past, but only on the prey in front of them, like a beast. Kei remains in silence while listening to the young girl's highly precise analysis of his true nature. Akari grips her chair and notices a crucial detail. Kei's eyes have something a little different about them. She stands up and states that his gaze is not as cold and empty as someone who only takes lives on command. The young heiress searches for something deeper and more human in the glow of the protagonist's blue eyes. She feels that deep down there is a burning heat fueled by hatred and an unshakable will to achieve a goal. It is precisely because of that tiny spark of humanity that Akari has decided to place her trust in him. Both stand firm in the room as she confirms that she has decided to believe his word. Kei simply nods, accepting the girl's resolution with a calmness that borders on indifference. Then he asks her about that assassin from the past who supposedly had a gaze so similar to his. Akari vividly remembers the tragic day. She saw everything that happened to her father. Kelly inquires about the identity of the attacker, wanting to know what kind of woman committed such an act. In the memory, a refined old woman appears with a gentle smile that hid a boundless malice. That woman walked in to see the boss of the Sidu clan completely naturally, as if she were visiting an old friend. In the blink of an eye, the supposed lady slit the throats of all the bodyguards guarding the place. No one had time to react to the incredible speed and brutality of the surprise attack. Akari cannot forget the lethal gleam of the knife the woman used to carry out the massacre. Suddenly, the young girl connects the dots and realizes that the weapon Ka mentioned earlier fits her memory. Ki asks her directly if the knife had a red spider lily design engraved on the blade. Akari freezes and asks him how it's possible that he knows such a specific detail about the killer's weapon. Ki understands immediately that Lycoris, that legendary and dangerous criminal, is still active and out for blood. The tension in the room escalates as both process that the danger is imminent. With a somber expression, he murmurs that the situation has gotten really bad for everyone present. Akari asks him what exactly worries him so much after the mention of that woman. Meanwhile, in another area of the mansion, silent footsteps advance with determination over the wood. The dreaded Lycoris has already infiltrated, and she asks the guard in front of her if it's time to give her answers. Katajiri is wounded on the floor, holding his arm while blood drips from his hand onto the ground. The assassin mocks him cruelly, saying that the mansion right now is like a deadly spiderweb. She confesses that she can perfectly see all the marks of the traps someone has placed around the house. Lycoris demands that Katajiri confess once and for all what they are hiding inside. With a sadistic look, she pulls out her sharp golden needles and threatens to torture him if he dares to stay silent. The bodyguard screams in agony as the old woman draws dangerously close to his face to intimidate him. The assassin enjoys the pure terror she is causing while whispering her lethal intentions into his ear. Suddenly, Akari appears out of nowhere, wielding a katana to try and save her faithful escort. The young heiress unleashes a desperate slash, determined not to allow that woman to shed any more blood in her home. Akari gasps heavily from the physical effort, fully aware that she is facing an absolute legend. Katajiri, bleeding from his mouth, screams at her, begging her to stop and get to safety immediately. Despite the danger, Akari stands her ground and bravely steps between the assassin and her wounded bodyguard. Lycoris blocks the powerful strike of the katana with jaw-dropping ease using her own weapons. The heiress is left completely in shock upon seeing that her blow has been stopped, without the slightest effort, by the old woman. Lycoris smiles with malice, gloating upon seeing that the young girl's effort has saved her a lot of trouble. With a lightning-fast movement, the assassin slits the throat of one of the bodyguards before he can even blink. Akari freezes in terror at the brutality of the scene. With her eyes wide open, the old woman orders her to never forget her face, reminding her of the day she spied on her from the cracks of the closet. Akari relives the trauma of that day, remembering how that same woman murdered her father in front of her. Lycoris comments sadistically that the young girl has grown to have the exact same look as her late father. The heiress's gaze fills with a contained fury as she prepares for the worst before her executioner. The assassin lets out a maniacal laugh, stating that Akari looks absolutely delicious in her desperation. Akari tries to counterattack with her katana, but her movements are slow and predictable compared to those of the professional. Lycoris dodges every slash with superhuman agility. Mocking the girl's desperate attempts, Katajiri watches helplessly from the ground, realizing they cannot win this battle on their own. At that critical instant, firm footsteps echo down the mansion's hallway, drawing everyone's attention. Ki finally appears on the scene and murmurs that the young lady still doesn't understand, that she is the one they must protect. Ki's presence emanates a red, menacing aura that freezes the air in the entire room.
The assassin
Recognizes the danger immediately, and confirms that there really was a monster hiding in this place. Lycoris gets into a stance, knowing that this young man is no ordinary opponent like the previous ones. She throws her golden needles with lethal precision, but Kay seems unfazed by the attack. The old woman draws her dagger imbued with a strange crimson power, preparing for the final showdown. Kay's eyes glow an intense red, revealing his true nature as an elite assassin. He advances calmly toward Lycoris, walking through the dark mist that begins to surround him. In a close-up, the blade of his weapon appears, which also carries the distinctive red spider lily design. Both Akari and Katajiri hold their breath, realizing that the real fight is about to begin. Dahlia stands in front of Kay, weapon in hand, while Akari watches everything from behind with her nerves on edge. The old woman realizes it instantly. This is no ordinary brat. There is something heavy about him. The combat lesson begins. Never take a rigid stance against someone carrying a blade. It's simple. If you try to block a slash with your bare hands, you're going to end up losing fingers or worse. Arms are full of vital arteries. One well-placed cut and you bleed out before you even realize it. Therefore, the best thing to do is to relax and not show a fixed posture to confuse the opponent. The play is to bait the rival so they go for a vital spot like the torso or the neck. Right when they lunge to finish you off is when you unleash the counterattack. That is the textbook response. Dahlia smiles with malice, knowing that even if you know it in theory, almost no one has the balls to actually do it. But Kay is right there in front of her blade, without a single shred of defense, breaking all the rules of logic. She suspects the guy is fishing, waiting for the exact moment to hit her with a counterblow. She concentrates to the absolute maximum, trying to read what is going through this guy's head. Suddenly, Kay moves like lightning, closing the distance in the blink of an eye. Dahlia reacts instantly and unleashes a downward slash with all her spite. The two cross paths in midair in a movement so fast it can barely be followed by sight. Key gives her a half smile. He thought he was going to catch her off guard, but he was dead wrong. The old woman admits it was a good move to attack first like that. But wait, she freezes upon noticing something. Did he really just hit her perineal nerve? They separate to size each other up again. While the tension in the room can be cut with a knife, that strike is a key technique of Salat. If they hit you right above the knee, your leg goes numb and you are left like a rag doll. Key remains completely confident. The old-timers really do know a lot, he says, mocking her experience. That makes Dahlia's blood boil. She tells him that he reminds her of a very unpleasant man she met a long time ago. The memory flies back 20 years, when she had stepped away from missions to be an instructor. We see her weapon from back then, the start of a stage where she trained the newcomers of Garden. In those days, she taught them that combat isn't just about brute force, but about fluidity. There was young Kay, taking a knee while learning the organization's most lethal arts. Ever since he was little, his red eyes gave away that he wasn't a normal apprentice, but a monster in the making. She used to tell him that no matter how much she explained the theory, he had to experience it for it to click in his head. Right in the middle of training, the boy's speed begins to exceed all the instructor's expectations. He manages to break through Dahlia's guard and gets right in her face with an intensity that is terrifying. Come on, teach me the next move. Boss, he lets out with a smile that is not of this world. Dahlia freezes. The brat mastered her technique after seeing it just once. He was a prodigy of evil. The very next day, she resigned from being an instructor. She couldn't keep teaching someone who learned that fast. She decided to return to active missions as a funeral flower so as not to be left behind. She became obsessed with perfecting her own dance of death, moving through the shadows under the full moon. She swore that the next time they crossed paths, she would be the one to have the final word. Returning to the present, Key turns his back on her and lets out that despite everything, he never hated her. Dahlia stands frozen, not understanding why he is telling her that in the middle of a fight to the death. He winks at her and reminds her of her own lesson. You have to break the will to fight before piercing the heart. The old woman just stares at him, processing that the student surpassed the teacher in every single way. Suddenly, panic takes over her. It's impossible, she stammers while backing away. Key enters full Reaper mode, moving at speeds that leave red trails and cutting through everything in his path. Key lets out that despite everything, he never truly grew to hate her. Dahlia stands there recalculating. She didn't expect him to come at her with that. The phrase reminds her of an old lesson. Stab their will before their heart. A phrase she knows all too well. The old woman gets serious. Upon seeing that the boy knows way too much about her methods, she refuses to believe that what is in front of her is possible. She is in total shock. He activates combat mode with those red eyes and lunges straight into the attack. The exchange of blows begins at a speed that can barely be followed. Slash, a strike connects, forcing the old woman to react instantly. The witnesses realize that she has shifted into fifth gear. The fight is dead serious. Dahlia recovers her red knife in the middle of the movement. Ready for another round, she grips the handle with a firmness that only someone with years of killing could have. She lunges with a flurry of slashes that seems to have no end. A bit of blood flies from Kay's neck. Things just got incredibly critical. She screams with all her might, pouring all her fury into every movement. Her attacks look like creeping vines trying to trap Kay from every angle. Kay notices that despite the years, the old woman hasn't lost a single bit of speed. The secret is her extreme flexibility, something she has had since birth and uses to attack in impossible ways. That is Lycoris's signature technique. They call it creeping vines because of how it envelops the rival. Dahlia repositions herself to keep pressing. She is not going to give him a single breather. You really are Nickaday, aren't you? She asks, confirming her suspicions. Ka, completely confident, asks her what she plans to do now that she already knows who he is. She falls silent for a second, processing that she has the legendary assassin in front of her. Dahlia doesn't understand the logic of how it can be him, but her instinct is screaming it to her. Her assassin instincts do not lie. The guy is a walking danger. She knows the one standing right there is the same monster she pursued for years. Let me show you, she says, preparing to unleash the heaviest part of her arsenal. She moves with a terrifying grace, ready to dance amidst the blood. A dance begins, much more beautiful and lethal than anything she has ever done before. It is her dance of death, and this time it goes faster than ever. She becomes a whirlwind of attacks that leaves no room for anything else. She adjusts her grip on her red knife for the final blow of her technique. Here comes the main course, the macabre dance, her most destructive move. Akari and the other guy are left with their mouths wide open. They cannot believe the level of the fight. Ki concentrates. He knows the only real threat is the tip of that knife. He begins to deflect Dahlia's blade using only his fists. A suicidal maneuver. The attacks are so fast that to an ordinary eye, they are just white flashes. Akari watches, breaking into a cold sweat, knowing that a single mistake and everything is over. Ki keeps blocking every slash with an accuracy that is terrifying. He thinks that in his past life, this wouldn't have even touched him. But now it's costing him a little. Dahlia is surprised that the guy withstands so much punishment without falling, but she had a dirty trick prepared. Her weapon was poisoned. She says the poison only paralyzes the muscles, enough to put him out of commission. We see the licorice flower, the symbol of old Dahlia, withering under the light. She lunges with one last scream, swearing that she herself is going to take Ki's life. Ki finds it hard to react. The paralyzing poison is starting to do its thing. Dahlia sees the perfect opportunity and prepares to deliver the final blow. She unleashes her macabre dance. A flurry of slashes that envelops the whole place. She lunges with a lethal thrust, convinced that this is the end of the boy. Dahlia puts all her murderous intent into this attack. She does not plan to miss. Boom. A massive impact generates a red flash that floods the entire room. The old woman is already celebrating, shouting that she has finally won the fight. But out of nowhere, Kay vanishes in a blur of pure speed, leaving Dahlia talking to herself. The assassin's face changes completely. Panic takes over her as she loses sight of him. Kay is right behind her, moving like a true shadow. The speed of the counterattack is such that Dahlia cannot even process what is happening behind her. The imposing figure of the harvester emerges, the true Nexaid reclaiming his place. With a swift and brutal movement, Ki grabs her by the neck and leaves her defenseless. He slams her against the floor with a force that makes the whole house vibrate. Dahlia lets out a muffled groan as her control over the fight vanishes completely. Her famous red knife goes flying, spinning through the air until it lands far out of her reach. But Ki catches the weapon and finishes by driving it into the old woman's chest in a flawless movement. Dahlia is left mortally wounded. Realizing that the student definitively surpassed the teacher, the assassin's gaze begins to cloud over. She knows this is her last act. Spitting blood, she tries to absorb how she was defeated so crushingly. With her last strength, she admits she was never a match for Nixe. Ke, without any emotion, tells her they will see each other again when it's their turn to go to hell. Dahlia dies with a macabre smile on her face, proud to have fallen before such a monster. They narrate that red flowers bloom furiously where blood has been spilled. Akari and the bodyguard Katajiri are in shock over what they witnessed. Kai is left standing, but it is clear Dahlia's poison is hitting him hard. The boy begins to gasp, trying to maintain consciousness as the toxin courses through his body. Katajiri approaches him worriedly, asking if he is okay after taking that poison head on. Ki admits he is doing bad and that he is only still standing because his tactical breathing slowed things down a bit. They explain to us that tactical breathing is a special forces trick to avoid losing one's grip. By lowering his heart rate, Ki manages to make the poison take much longer to reach his vital organs. He says they don't need to look for help. Every assassin who uses poison always carries the antidote on them. Ki begins to search the old woman's body, looking for something useful. Looks like we just found our next clue, he lets out while showing an object. It turns out the assassin was carrying a very particular golden pocket watch. Akari watches in silence with a mix of fear and relief for having survived. We change scenes to the Sidu residence late at night. Katajiri has a serious expression, realizing the threat is much bigger than they thought. They pull out a first aid kit to start treating the battle wounds. Akari gets to work and bandages her bodyguard's arm while they discuss the next step. Akari finishes bandaging the bodyguard and says that should be enough for now. At the Sidu mansion, the atmosphere is heavy. The girl decides it's time to put an end to all this madness. The bodyguard reflects on the fight. After what he saw, it is clear to him that Kay is no ordinary human. He remembers Kay's impossible movements. That is on a completely different level from any street fight he has ever seen. Katajiri feels helpless, gritting his teeth upon realizing his own weaknesses. He feels that with his current strength, he is not capable of protecting young Lady Akari from monsters like that. He explains to her that she is the only heiress of the former boss and that her life is in constant danger. He doesn't want Akari to sink any deeper into this rotten world, full of dangerous guys like the ones they just faced. He begs her to please flee far away to some safe place while the rest of the clan handles the problems. Akari listens in silence, processing the idea of abandoning everything she knows to save herself. Suddenly, Ki appears in the room and comments to himself that fleeing is just one option among many. Katajiri gets a massive scare, wondering at what moment the boy entered without anyone noticing. Ki looks at them with that poker face of his, ready to drop one of his uncomfortable truths. Akari looks at him defiantly, refusing to be intimidated by the assassin's presence. Ki reminds her that she is no innocent schoolgirl. She is Sidhu's daughter, and that comes with a price. He tells her that whether she likes it or not, her destiny has been marked by blood and violence since she was born. That curse is going to pursue her wherever she tries to escape. There is no easy way out in this business. Katajiri explodes with rage and screams at him not to talk, as if he knows everything about their lives. Ignoring the screams, Ki lifts a tablet and says he already got what he was looking for. The client's name. Both Akari and her bodyguard freeze at the news. Who is the one that wants them dead? Ki explains that his intelligence contact managed to hack the data hidden inside Dahlia's watch. He adjusts his cap and asks them directly if they aren't curious to know who sent the flowers to the clan's funeral. Akari, determined to face the truth, demands that he stop beating around the bush and tell her the name once and for all. Someone slams a laptop shut with a blunt thud. On the screen, we see Masaya Kuroki, a guy who climbed fast to become the right hand in the Sidhu clan. Akari's bodyguard cannot believe the traitor is someone so close to them. Akari Sidhu explains that her father recruited him years ago and the guy rose like foam in the organization. He made a fortune managing the clan's casinos and underground fights. He was an outsider, but everyone took for granted that he would reach the top soon because of the wealth he brought in. Ki listens to everything while lying on the floor, thinking that waiting his turn wasn't enough for Masaya Kuroki. The guy allied himself with Garden, the very same one to which Dahlia and Lycoris belong. He sold out the boss and the entire old guard to seize absolute command. Even the boss's daughter, Akari Sidhu, ended up being a target in his cleanup plans. His idea was to usurp the position and unify the underworld using the power of the clan, all to leave it under the total control of Garden. Kei's eyes flash. His only plan now is to wipe Garden off the map. He holds the laptop and asks the girl what she plans to do now that she knows the truth. Akari Sidhu closes her eyes, enduring the weight of the betrayal. She kneels on the tatami, buried in her own thoughts for a moment. Then she stands up to look out the window. She has absolutely no intention of running away. The bodyguard grows desperate and begs her not to do something crazy, as it is too dangerous. She thanks him for his loyalty, but it is clear to her that running away is not the style of the Sidhu clan. She is not going to hide without even knowing who killed her father. Akari's bodyguard grits his teeth, knowing he cannot make her change her mind. Ki adjusts his cap and notices the girl has already made a firm decision. Akari Sidhu admits that fleeing was never a real option for her. She knows perfectly well that her house and her legacy were not built with exactly clean hands. If destiny wants to punish her someday, she will accept it. But she does not plan to hand the clan over to a coward. Ki looks at her with a smile. It seems he has found a good partner. She realizes that she doesn't even know who he is. Just call me Kei, he replies calmly. They decide that the less they know about each other, the better for both of them for now. Akari Sidhu extends her hand to formalize the deal. She asks him to be her strength in the fight against Masaya Kuroki. In exchange, she will use all of the Sidhu resources to help him annihilate Garden. Ki accepts the deal with a look of satisfaction. Sidhu commands a massive information network and much money. Their influence reaches as far as politics and the major corporations of the country. Ki knows he could not get a better backing for his vengeance against the organization. They seal the pact with a definitive handshake. We change scenes to the illuminated city under the night sky. Masaya Kuroki is relaxing with his wine, but he is uneasy at having no news from Lycoris.
He asks Campanula, who waits in the shadows,
what he thinks is going on with the silence. The young Campanula remains expressionless, showing no concern whatsoever. His blue eyes gleam with absolute coldness while he listens to the boss. Masaya Kuroki becomes pensive, surprised that not even a single word about the mission has arrived yet. Campanula leans against the wall, complaining that babysitting an old woman is not part of his job. Masaya Kuroki listens to him while wondering if Dahlia got into a bad mood for having to liquidate a simple schoolgirl. Campanula lets out a mocking chuckle as an aura of danger begins to surround him. Masaya Kuroki warns him not to talk like that. After all, Dahlia could have died somewhere just like the rest. Campanula closes his eyes, despising those supposedly stronger assassins, who in the end turned out to be pure talk. Masaya Kuroki loses his patience and sharply orders him to shut up once and for all. In the blink of an eye, Campanula is already in front of him with a knife grazing his throat. Masaya Kuroki freezes like stone. He couldn't even see the moment he moved. With an icy look, the boy reminds him that they are only helping him because it suits Garden's objectives. He makes it clear to him that the funeral flowers are not his pawns, and the boss has no choice but to accept his mistake. Campanula withdraws the weapon, leaving a small trail of blood on Masaya Kuroki's neck as a warning. He walks away with his hands in his pockets, telling him to watch his mouth the next time he speaks about them. Campanula stays in the shadows, shrouded in his blue hoodie and with an indifferent expression. Masaya Kuroki touches his wound, thinking that in the end it doesn't matter what happens to a simple student. He looks through the window of his massive building, boasting that he already eliminated all the old guard that stood in his way. With the Sidhu clan under his command, he plans to use it as a base to unify the country's entire underworld. Campanula smiles with malice. Everything will be done in the name of Garden. 2 days later, the situation in the city is about to take an unexpected turn. The luxury casino is bursting at the seams. People bet fortunes amidst drinks and luxury without suspecting a thing. The roulette and card tables do not stop spinning while money changes hands rapidly. A woman in white high heels enters the place, immediately catching the glances of those present. It is Akari Sidhu, dressed in gala attire and escorted by men in black suits, including Kei. Masaya Kuroki has no idea that his supposed time of glory is about to end. Kei, with his red eyes glowing with intensity, is ready to light the fuse of the rebellion. The roulette ball spins and the slot machines flash, with their bright lights flashing in the background. And Krugia deals the cards with skill while the gamblers hold their breath. The casino atmosphere is thick with smoke and greed. It is the perfect setting for the attack. The group advances down the main hallway with a firm step, ignoring the chaos of the betting. Akari Sidhu looks impeccable in her white dress, maintaining a serious and highly determined expression. The customers murmur as they see her pass by. Her face looks vaguely familiar to them, but they can't quite place her. One of Masaya Kuroki's men gets nervous upon noticing that they are drawing too much attention. He lets out a small smile of confidence. Everything is turning out exactly as they planned.
Days earlier, at the Sidhu clan headquarters,
They were discussing this very plan in a traditional room. Akari's bodyguard slams the table with force, asking if they have gone crazy with this idea. He doesn't understand why the young heiress has to step directly into the wolf's mouth. He screams at Ki that if he wants to take care of Masaya Kuroki, he should do it alone without risking her. Ki answers him with total calmness that it is necessary for her to be present at the confrontation. If she stays hidden, the clan will tear itself apart in an internal war until it disappears completely. The bodyguard snaps his teeth, frustrated at having to accept the assassin's logic. But Ki insists. If Akari steps forward and takes the head of the traitor herself, all the men of the clan will see at a glance who the true and legitimate successor is. If she claims the Sidhu name at that moment, the rest will have no choice but to follow her. Akari Sidhu, sitting in a traditional room, orders Katahiri to contact an exclusive clothing store in Motomachi. With a sharp look, she demands a new dress for the most important night of her life and asks that they prioritize it immediately. Ki observes the scene with a half smile, knowing that the plan is already in motion. Meanwhile, in the VIP area of the casino, the doors remain closed to maintain the privacy of the high command. A subordinate enters hurriedly to inform a man with a goatee that there is trouble in the room. The man is surprised to find out that the Sidhu princess has arrived at the place accompanied by 2 bodyguards. Masaya Kuroki, reclining on a luxury sofa, clicks his tongue upon confirming that the girl is still alive. Campanula, his face illuminated by his phone, offers himself with a sadistic smile to go and clean up the matter immediately. Masaya Kuroki stops him, warning that he doesn't want a ruckus in front of his clients that would ruin the reputation of his castle. He orders that they treat her like any other guest, without giving her any kind of special attention. For now, in the outer hallway, the VIP sign glows under the golden lights of the corridor. Katahiri curses in a low voice upon realizing that Masaya Kuroki doesn't even deign to come out and receive the heiress. Ki maintains his calm and states that first they must force him to come out onto the stage of his own free will. Akari Sidhu nods firmly, ready to play her part on this dangerous board. Her footsteps echo on the blue carpet as she walks elegantly toward the gaming tables. The group arrives at a blackjack table where the stakes are already at very high levels. The dealer apologizes politely upon seeing a young woman attempting to join such an exclusive table. He informs her that the minimum bet on that table starts at 1 million yen, trying to dissuade her. Without a word, Kei lifts a metallic briefcase and lets it drop with a blunt thud onto the table. Upon opening, the briefcase reveals perfect rows of extremely high-value casino chips. She piles the chips with total contempt for money, forming towers that intimidate the other players. Akari Sidhu declares coldly that she is not interested in insignificant bets and that this amount is fine to start with. The dealer, breaking into a cold sweat, bows, apologizing for having doubted her economic capacity. He begins to shuffle the cards rapidly, trying to regain his composure before the unperturbed heiress. He slides the first card toward Akari Sidhu, wishing her luck in a mechanical manner. An hour later, the atmosphere in the casino has changed radically and murmurs flood the room. The dealer maintains a tense smile while trying to hide his growing nervousness. Akari Sidhu has not changed her expression in all this time, maintaining absolute control over the game. A crowd has gathered around the table to witness the young Woman's incredible winning streak. The dealer announces with a trembling voice that no more bets are accepted in this round. The cards on the blue mat show a 5 and a 6, a dangerous combination for the house. The employee breathes with difficulty, realizing that he is about to lose a fortune against a stranger. The dealer's hand trembles, visibly as he reveals a 5 of spades, next to a queen of spades. In desperation, he takes a new card from the box to try and beat the girl's score. His eyes open wide upon seeing the result of his own game, feeling like the world is crashing down on him. His hand falls heavily, unable to keep hiding the disaster that just occurred at the table. The revealed card is an 8 of hearts, a number that knocks him completely out of the game. The final cards show that the house has busted, granting a new victory to the customer. The crowd bursts into shouts of astonishment. No one can believe someone has so much luck or skill. Key observes the confusion of the staff with a mocking smile, enjoying the chaos they are causing. Blackjack is not just a matter of chance when one knows how to use the correct strategy. There is a legendary technique called card counting that allows one to calculate probabilities with surgical precision. In the past, famous organized counting teams won hundreds of thousands in Las Vegas. But what Kay is doing right now far surpasses even that legend. He memorizes each of the cards as they appear on the table, and with each new card revealed, he instantly recalculates all the variables of the game. He always chooses the option with the highest expected value to guarantee success. Then he sends the answer to Akari through light signals coordinated with his watch. Compared to the chaos of a real battlefield, tracking 6 decks is elementary. For someone who survives by analyzing routes, cameras, and the wind, this is a piece of cake. The pile of chips in front of Akari's Sidu keeps growing before the astonished eyes of those present. "I'm not finished having fun yet," she says. "Please keep dealing." The dealer is on the verge of collapse, feeling the weight of each loss on his shoulders. He trembles from head to toe, knowing they will make him assume responsibility if the disaster continues. "Well, Princess Akari, you should have warned me of your visit," intervenes a voice loaded with fake enthusiasm. Akari maintains her composure, though the gleam in her eyes betrays that the main target has appeared. "You have really surprised me. If I had known you were coming, I would have prepared a proper welcome." Masaya Kuroki presents himself before her with an arrogant smile, confident in his territory. "Save the theater." Akari cuts him off without taking her eyes off her winnings. The mountains of chips are a physical reminder of the blow they have dealt to the house. Kuroki claps theatrically, suggesting that it is time to retire and enjoy what has been won. He states that they will pay up to the very last yen, but he pulls out an extra stack of bills as a personal gift. He hands her the money, suggesting that she invite her friends. Trying to buy his way out with condescension, "It seems the rat occupying my father's castle has become very arrogant," Akari replies with venom. Kuroki's expression turns icy, revealing the true nature of the traitor behind his mask of courtesy. Akari Sidu has not come to play with a calmness that terrifies. She mentions his allies from the forest, making it clear she has heavyweight backing. The bearded boss listens to her closely, but his gaze reveals that he is not pleased at all that they mention that group in his territory. Among the casino guests, whispering breaks out. They cannot believe that the only daughter of the former Sidu boss is right there, showing her face. The guy with the beard throws a warning loaded with venom at her. He tells her to stop playing with fire, calling her Princess Akari in a quite sarcastic tone. Akari is unfazed. She simply stands up, and the sound of her heels marks the end of diplomacy. With a gesture of contempt toward the cards, she admits she is already bored of conventional table games. She wants something real. Her blue eyes lock onto her opponent. She wants to try the club's main attraction, the one that everyone talks about but few dare to enter. The bearded boss remains silent for a moment. He knows perfectly well what she refers to and the danger it entails. Finally, he lets out the name, the Crimson Cage. Just mentioning it already changes the air in the room. Beneath a luxurious casino, this clandestine combat ring is hidden. Here there are no rules, only survival and brutal bets. Akari proposes the deal. Each will put one of their pieces into the ring. The one left standing takes everything. He tries to wriggle out, saying that nothing is scheduled for today, but Akari interrupts him. She has already decided what she is going to wager. The bet is absolute madness. She puts on the table everything she inherited from her father, the properties, the assets, and even herself. But it isn't free. In exchange, she demands that he wager the entire casino. It is an all or nothing that leaves the guy breaking into a cold sweat. Those present are left speechless. They realize that this is not just a fight. It is the definitive battle for control. Akari maintains that gaze of steel. She knows she has thrown a hook that his pride will not allow him to ignore. The bearded boss grits his teeth. He knows that if he backs down in front of everyone, his reputation as a tough man is finished forever. Akari realizes his dilemma and drops the final strike on him. "Are you going to tell me you're going to run away?" The provocation is perfect. Rage is visible on the guy's face, but also a spark of ambition. The offer is too tempting. In the end, he finishes by accepting the challenge. He says it seems fun to him, though inside he is burning up. He accepts the bet, calling her a brat, trying to regain some authority while they prepare for what is coming. Key appears right behind her. His presence is imposing. He is no longer just a companion. Now he is Akari's weapon. Key shows a slight smile of confidence. He knows that all eyes are on him, but he seems to be in his element. We move toward the depths of the club, passing through the doors of the exclusive VIP area. Every corner is guarded. Behind these doors, the strings of the city's underworld are pulled. In a dark room, someone observes everything through a wall of screens. The casino has eyes everywhere. The cameras show the verbal confrontation that just occurred. Not a single detail escapes those who control the place. The monitor focuses on Kay. They know this. Guy is no ordinary fighter, and that he could change the course of the night. Campanula appears on another screen with that maniacal smile that bodes no good. Seems he is enjoying the chaos. Some guards in suits and dark sunglasses guard the final entrance. Only those who are ready for pure violence pass through here. Their faces are expressionless, mere statues of flesh and bone, ensuring that the show does not stop. The tunnel leading to the ring is full of shadows. It is the path of no return for those who accept entering the cage. The crowd bursts into shouts. The atmosphere is loaded with adrenaline and bloodlust. People live for these moments. Suddenly, the spotlights turn on over the arena. The brightness is almost blinding, marking the start of the butchery. The presenter takes the microphone and welcomes everyone, from the gentlemen to the bad girls to the crimson cage. He shouts with excitement that, although it wasn't planned, they have managed to lock in a super special last-minute match. In one corner, we have Tai Casey, a human wall. Key looks tiny in front of such a monster of muscles. Takazi, nicknamed the Crusher, has a face marked by battles and a gaze that says he doesn't know what mercy is. The undefeated champion begins to warm up, striking his fists with a force that echoes throughout the place. He is ready to crush whatever is in front of him. The announcer moves on to present the blue corner, the opponent no one saw coming. Ke stares fixedly at his rival. He doesn't seem frightened by Takezi's size. His calmness is that of someone who has already seen much worse things. They present him as the mysterious fighter with no record. Codename K. K loosens his tie calmly, ready to start the show. The crowd won't stop mocking. What is that noodle doing up there? They shout, convinced that K is not going to last even a breath. The announcer presents the massive favorite Takeshi King-Hu, the undefeated king of the Crimson Cage, a karate monster who has never lost. In the balcony box, the bearded boss's men begin to sweat. Do they really think the guy in the suit can go against that animal? They ask each other with incredulity. Key stands right there, unperturbed. His somber gaze hides the fact that he has already planned every second of what is to come. Key closes his eyes and lets out a sentence that says it all. I am not a fighter. And he is right. His thing is much more lethal than a simple sport. He clearly references the final rules before the massacre. No weapons, but outside of that, any kind of brutality is welcome. Takeshi shows his teeth in a fierce smile. He is anxious to tear his opponent apart and maintain his bloody winning streak. Key blinks. He is only waiting for the signal to start what will be the final episode for this karateka. Ready, go, shouts the guy with the microphone. The invisible bell rings and the contained tension breaks all at once as Takeshi lunges with the entire weight of his body, throwing a punch loaded with all his power straight at Kay's head. The impact echoes loudly. Kay blocks the blow with his arms crossed, receiving the raw inertia of the attack head-on. The giant wastes no time and keeps provoking him. What's wrong, suit guy? You can't even lift your hands. He screams at him while preparing another discharge. The destructive flurry begins. Takeshi throws punch after punch trying to break the guard of that base of pure brute force. The crowd is out of control. Come on, Chingu, kill him. Destroy him, they chant while they see Kay simply enduring the punishment. From above, the fight looks like a unilateral execution. Takeshi attacks with everything, and Key has barely moved from the center of the ring. The bearded boss, calm with his cigarette, says something that leaves everyone in his box confused. They are not mistaken. The guy knows how to recognize real talent. He realizes that Kay is slipping right through the blind spot of every single one of King Hao's punches. And the most incredible thing, he adds with suspicion, is that he hasn't taken a single step since the fight started. It is a perfect defense. In effect, Kay dodges the punches by millimeters with an elegance that makes Takeshi's attacks look slow. The bearded boss looks at Akari Sidu and lets out a smile. A pretty fun trick, don't you think? He doesn't take it seriously yet. Akari looks at him with absolute coldness. She didn't come here to see tricks. She came to win back what is hers. The boss continues with his condescending speech. Listen, Princess Akari, he tells her, trying to impose his hierarchy using her name. In the ring, Kay seems to read his rival's mind. The TV ring and the world we live in look nothing alike, he sentences coldly. Takeshi returns to the attack, frustrated by not being able to connect. In a place with no rules, what decides everything is not technique. he screams in desperation. The bearded boss completes the sentence from the box while looking at Akari. What decides everything is pure and senseless brutality. Akari remains in silence, but her look of contempt toward the man beside her speaks for itself. The tension in the VIP area is almost as high as that of the ring. The boss tries to intimidate the woman with his closeness. A dog needs discipline after all, says the boss with a sinister smile, implying he already has control. Akari looks at him from the corner of her eye, sick of his arrogance. She knows perfectly well who the true predator in this room is. How strange, murmurs the boss, beginning to notice that something doesn't add up in the rhythm of the fight. King Hao's blows are having no effect. Akari doesn't stay quiet. She makes it clear to him that a dog owned by Garden has absolutely no right to try and put a collar on her. It's disgusting, Akari finishes. While the boss can only smirk to himself at her response, the guy puts out his cigarette forcefully, losing his patience upon seeing that his champion is making a fool of himself. Shh. Hey, Chingu, how long do you plan to keep playing with him? He screams at the top of his lungs toward the ring, but suddenly the boss's face transforms. Shock takes over him as he realizes the reality of the situation. Takeshi's feet are soaked. Sweat drips onto the floor of the ring. The giant has exhausted all his energy trying to touch Kei, and he is completely exhausted, gasping as if he were about to collapse. He doesn't understand why his rival remains intact. Kei, on the other hand, is as if he just arrived. Not even a hair is out of place, and he throws a smile at him loaded with mockery. The spectators are in total confusion. King Hao is the one who hasn't stopped attacking, but he is the one who seems to be consuming himself alone. What's wrong? Ki asks with a terrifying calmness. Are you out of punches already? The humiliation for the champion is absolute. Takeshi tries to react, but it is already too late. His eyes open wide as he realizes that the real attack is coming now. Ki unleashes a devastating kick straight to the giant's jaw. Playtime is over for the king of the cage. The blow is definitive. Takeshi King Hao goes flying backward from the force of the impact, with his jaw shattered and a lost gaze. Viewed from above, the scene is shocking. The undefeated king of the cage lies motionless in the center of the ring, while silence takes over the arena. The spectators are in a total state of shock. No one can believe the giant has fallen so fast to a guy who looks like a simple office worker. The referee stands petrified for a few seconds before reacting. He didn't expect to have to start a countdown against his own champion tonight. 1, 2, 3, shouts the referee while Takeshi doesn't even flinch. Ki has already turned his back on him, knowing that the job is finished. While adjusting his tie calmly, Kei reflects. When you hunt a wild beast, the first thing you must do is break its fangs. One of Kuroki's men approaches Kei, trembling. What? What the hell did you do to him? He asks, but the answer won't come from Ki. Suddenly, the man falls to the floor, foaming at the mouth. A new and terrifying presence has slipped into the cage without anyone noticing. Ki senses the danger and turns his head. His assassin instinct screams at him that the real trouble has just arrived at the party. A small figure in a blue hoodie appears out of nowhere, standing over Takeshi's inert body. The atmosphere in the arena changes completely. Hey, what just... One of the guards tries to ask before his world begins to spin violently. The figure moves like a blue lightning bolt, leaving behind a trail of speed that defies human perception. It is Campanula. Kuroki's thugs fall one after another. It is a silent and extremely efficient butchery executed by the young assassin. With a precise kick to the face, Campanula knocks out another guard, demonstrating a refined and lethal technique. In barely a few seconds, the base of the cage is full of bodies. Campanula stands there, surrounded by the chaos he himself has created. The entire arena falls into absolute silence again. Only Kei and the mysterious intruder in the blue hoodie remain standing. Well, I've learned something during this time, says the boy. This casino isn't very nice to its star guests. His voice is childish but icy. Kei maintains his defensive posture, analyzing every millimeter of his new rival. All right, what exactly are you planning? Campanula pulls back his hood, revealing a blonde teenager with blue eyes that shine with an unnatural light. I am the one in charge of closing this little show. The young assassin leaps with agility to face Kei. His movements are feline, loaded with a murderous intent that Kei recognizes immediately. I don't like clowns who improvise and ruin the script, comments. Campanula with a sadistic smile, preparing for the attack. Kei narrows his eyes, trying to decipher what he refers to. Script? He repeats, feeling that there is something much bigger at stake. If you two win here, all the work we've done up until now goes to the trash, explains. Campanula calmly. The cage is now the stage for a confrontation between two monsters. So this fight, I'm going to erase it from the official records, declares the boy. Campanula looks toward the VIP box with impudence. You don't have any problem with that, right? Kuroki? He addresses the mafia boss directly. Kuroki, sitting next to a visibly tense Akari Sidhu, nods with a complicit smile. Yes, I'm counting. On you to fix it. Campanula. lunges into the attack with a blinding speed, so I'm very sorry about this. But this is as far as you go, he says while vanishing. The first exchange is brutal. Ki barely manages to deflect a blow that was aimed straight to kill him. Recognizing the dangerousness of his opponent, clears throat. That was an axe kick, Kay thinks, analyzing the attack. A deadly movement directed with surgical precision at the carotid artery. Campanula stops for an instant, fascinated by Kay's reaction. From what you showed before, it's clear you are a Silat user. What style do you use? Silat is a traditional martial art originating from Southeast Asia, known worldwide for being one of the most lethal in hand-to-hand combat. Due to its devastating effectiveness, it is the foundation of training for many elite armies and special forces around the world. There are hundreds of different schools, from those that specialize in bare-handed strikes to those that use knives and lethal joint locks. Kay's eyes glow an intense red. If the garden assassin wants answers, he will have to rip them out of him in combat. Key unleashes a flurry of attacks, using the fluidity and deceptive angles of Silat to try and counter Campanula's superhuman speed. Campanula is not left behind. His blue eyes glow with intensity as he anticipates each of Key's movements with a chilling precision. The clash between both generates a visible shockwave. Campanula manages to grab Kay's suit, looking for an opening for a final blow. With an explosive movement, Campanula unleashes a loaded palm strike that impacts right on Key's chest, breaking his defense. Key goes flying through the air, spinning violently from the force of the impact. It is the first time he loses control of the situation. Key lands with difficulty, using his hand to break his skid over the metallic floor of the cage, leaving friction marks behind him. With a small trail of blood running down his lip, Kay slowly stands up. His red eyes burn with determination. The real fight has just begun. Campanula smiles, enjoying the moment. He knows he has found an opponent worthy of him, someone who can actually make his script interesting. The impact has been astonishing. With a single movement, the boy in the hoodie has sent Key flying, the same fighter who didn't even flinch before King Hao's brutal blows. From the observation box, Akari Sidhu looks at the scene with growing fear, while Kuroki maintains a smug smile, pleased by this unexpected turn. Kay's eyes glow with a crimson intensity as he recovers, reaction speed and power beyond human limits. He murmurs, recognizing the danger. You are one of the funeral flowers. Campanula stands straight and confident beneath a strange geometric sign glowing in the air. His mere presence emanates a bloodlust that freezes the environment. I am Campanula, declares the young assassin with arrogance, while the image of the flower that gives him his name, the bellflower of gratitude, appears as an omen of death. With a cynical gesture that mimics a prayer, Campanula smiles maniacally. And I really should thank you. You've given me one last fun little game before finishing this boring job. Key stands up slowly, ignoring the guards who watch the scene paralyzed. His gaze is locked onto the boy in the blue hoodie. A defiant smile appears on Kay's blood-stained face. I'm the one who should thank you. Campanula, he responds with a tone that promises violence. Kay's determination explodes. His red pupils burn with a terrifying resolve. If you are one of the funeral flowers, then I can finally finish you off without having to hold back. Without a word, Kay lunges into the attack, becoming a blur of movement seeking to close the distance and punish the enemy. The bodyguards who still remain standing watch with distorted faces, aware that they are facing two monsters operating on a completely different level. Akari clutches her fists, trapped in a conspiracy that now threatens to consume everything. While Kuroki savors what he believes is his final victory, Ki recovers his composure, coldly analyzing the damage received. I really don't want to take another one of those palm attacks, he thinks, adjusting his strategy on the fly. Campanula lowers his gaze, letting the shadow of his hood hide his features, while his blue eyes emit a cold and predatory glow that illuminates the darkness. Ki's focus is absolute. First, I need to decipher his fighting style, he reflects, looking for any crack or weakness in the young man's strange combat method. The arena is now a desolate battlefield surrounded by fallen fighters. It seems the show has finally stopped. Campanula comments with total indifference. The blonde assassin mocks his opponent with superiority. You're already out of improvisation tricks. If you don't come to me, then I'll come look for you. With a sudden burst of speed, Campanula disappears from his original position, leaving a trail of energy that confuses those present. He barely has a fraction of a second to react when the enemy has already cut the distance. He's fast, he thinks, feeling the imminence of the blow. Campanula throws a punch loaded with destructive force, seeking to end the combat with a single decisive and brutal blow. The air hisses from the violence of the movement. Ki is forced to perform a desperate, borderline evasive maneuver to prevent the attack from pulverizing him. As he dodges by a hair, Kay analyzes every detail with his expert assassin mind. What is this movement? He asks himself, noticing something unusual in his rival's biomechanics. Despite Campanula's dizzying speed, Ki's enhanced senses begin to catch the pattern. It is fast, but his lines of attack are easy to read. The counterattack is near. Kay notices that the kid leaves too many openings when attacking. His movements are predictable. He dodges the slash with ease. He feels that this has nothing to do with Licorice's refined technique. He remembers Dahlia, that woman who turned violence into a pure and lethal art form. Campanula throws a blow, shouting loudly, trying to regain control of the rhythm. The two clash in an exchange of blows that sends sparks flying into the air. Key intercepts the boy's arm with a precise impact. A blue flash comes out of the point of contact. They separate. Key lands calmly while Campanula stands measuring the distance. Kuroki celebrates, thinking they already have him. Meanwhile, Akari watches the fight without saying a single word. The boy looks at his arm and notices that Kay went straight for his radial nerve. He realizes that it is no ordinary attack. Campanula smiles from the side. He recognizes the technique. It is a Salat calculation to disable limbs. The key was using the pisiform bone of the wrist to strike an exact point, something that requires an absurd precision. The blonde guy gets excited. He begins to suspect that Kay uses the legendary forbidden style known as DL. Key limits himself to smiling. He is surprised that a brat like him is also well informed about dark martial arts. That style was born in Indonesia to resist invasions, a school of assassins so bloody that it ended up buried in oblivion. It was said that the last user of that technique died 17 years ago, leaving only corpses in his wake. Campanula launches back into the attack with an explosive leap. He is not going to let Kay breathe. The boy moves so fast that his image becomes a blur under the hood. He shows no hesitation. The blows fly in all directions. Key has to strain himself to keep up with that speed. Key opens his eyes wide. He notices something strange in the way the kid reacts to his feints. Campanula points his finger at him and laughs. He finds what Kay is trying to do fascinating. Key throws a punch with rage but feels like he is hitting the air the whole time. The blonde assassin begins to leave residual images. He dodges each of Kay's blows as if it were child's play. No matter how hard he tries, the boy is always one step ahead, maintaining that mocking smile. He doesn't understand anything. No one is supposed to be able to dodge so easily at this distance. Normally, a martial artist reads eye movements or body weight to predict the attack. Without that, you're lost. But this kid isn't predicting anything. He is dodging the blows right after seeing them come toward his face. It is a reaction speed that goes beyond what an ordinary human being can endure. Campanula takes advantage of a distraction and lands a direct blow that sends Key flying through the air. Key bites the dust against the pavement. Kuroki screams his name in desperation upon seeing him fall. Akari tenses up seeing her protector on the ground. She begins to fear that things are getting out of hand. The bearded boss puts a hand in front of Akari, preventing her from getting closer. He wants her to see the end. The boss tells her to look closely, that this is the true violence of the underworld. The ground is completely destroyed. With a crazy smile, the bearded man asserts that in his world, the only thing that matters is who is left standing at the end. Akari looks at him with total contempt. To her, that guy is nothing more than a bragging coward. She warns him that when all this is over, she will make him pay a much higher price than what he put on the table. Key supports himself on the ground and begins to stand up slowly. He hasn't said his last word yet. He stands before the boss and his blonde assassin. The tension in the air could be cut with a knife. Key adjusts his tie and wipes the blood from his face. He already figured out what the boy's trick is. He looks him straight in the eyes. He has understood that Campanula's specialty is not just natural talent. The blonde guy stands waiting for his reaction, curious to see if Key really realized his secret. Campanula raises his arms, laughing like a child. He is proud of what makes him special. He confesses that his nervous system was modified with stem cell transplants. He is not human. He is an experiment. His nerves are on another level. Thicker axons and a density of ion channels that a normal human doesn't even dream of. Key understands that this absurd reaction speed is not training, but pure modified biology. While an elite athlete takes 0.2 seconds to react, for this boy, the world moves in slow motion. Campanula boasts that his response time is 0.002 seconds, the same as a feline. For him, the real world looks like a movie recorded frame by frame. He explains that his proprioception is so sharp that he feels every millimeter of his body. Kuroki and Akari listen to the explanation, unable to believe what they are facing. The bearded boss observes from the shadows, enjoying the humiliation that Kay is suffering. The boy assures that he can feel every muscle and every pathway of force flowing through his interior. For him, mastering Fajin, that explosive power that takes masters years, is as natural as breathing. He mocks Kay, saying that all his effort and that of his masters is pathetic compared to his science. The figures of Dahlia and Lycoris appear as shadows of a past that the boy considers obsolete. Kay, far from being scared, asks him if having such fast sight isn't a nuisance in day-to-day life. Campanula is left bewildered by the question. He didn't expect Kay to take it so calmly. The Reaper mocks him, asking if movies at 24 frames per second don't seem like a poorly made flipbook to him. The boy admits, annoyed, that watching movies is quite irritating with those eyes. Ko decides that he has already heard enough tricks and that it is time to put an end to the performance. He takes a deep breath, preparing for the final clash. A red energy surrounds Kay, a final episode to his boring story. Campanula responds with his own purple aura, anxious to see how the scene ends. The two assassins stand still for a second, before throwing themselves into an all or nothing. Akari grits her teeth. She knows that what is coming is going to be brutal. He acknowledges to himself that Campanula's reflexes are something totally out of this world. The boy moves like a blue lightning bolt, dodging every attack attempt from the protagonist. Ka knows that his only option is to drive a counterattack right when the boy launches his own. But when Ki tries to strike, Campanula vanishes. Before his eyes, the blonde guy smiles. He knows perfectly well that Ki is looking for that counterattack. He mocks him, asking if he felt very confident after his first hit. His eyes shine with an inhuman intensity. What a pity, he thinks. He asserts that he can react to his counterattack even faster than Kay can launch it. He lands a direct uppercut to his jaw that shakes him completely. For Campanula, Ki is just another doll in the script he already has written in his head. Kay's feet skid across the floor as he tries to regain his balance. The impact sends him flying several meters backward. Ki stands with his head down, seeming like he is about to give up before the boy's speed. Campanula lunges forward, screaming for him to die, and challenges him to try and stop his fist, but when he looks up, Kay has an icy gaze that freezes the blood. The boy is surprised. He notices that Ki is not moving to counterattack. It doesn't matter, thinks the blonde guy. At this distance, it's impossible for him to react in time. He launches his final blow, screaming that it's all over. Ki tilts his head barely a few centimeters, letting the fist pass right by. Campanula's face transforms. He doesn't understand how he missed that blow at point-blank range. Kay's counterattack was already underway. Campanula's absurd reflexes only work if he can see the blow coming. But what happens if the attack is so subtle that he doesn't even recognize it? A clean hit on a vital point while flying through the air, at that precise instant. While Kay's body was moving away due to the inertia of the previous blow, the tip of his finger barely grazed the center of Campanula's forehead. It is a secret technique of Renchamati called Jarumbisa, the poison needle, an art of assassination that strikes the trigeminal nerve in the face with a single finger, neutralizing the transmission of sensory signals. The effect is not immediate, but when the target sharpens his nerves and enters a state of absolute focus, that numbness turns into a delayed poison that destroys his senses. Ki smiles, asking him what he thinks of the quality of this ending. Campanula receives the real impact of his own strength rebounding against him. The boy is launched backward, unable to control his body before the massive shock of energy. He smashes through the floor with a deafening crash. He spits blood, his eyes wide with pain and confusion. The impact is so strong that it cracks all the concrete around him. The boy is left lying in the middle of a crater, defeated by his own arrogance. Akari, Kuroki, and the bearded boss observe the scene in a deathly silence, unable to process what they have just seen. Campanula tries to stand up, stammering that it's impossible, that he doesn't understand what Kay did. Ki looks at him with disdain. I barely touched you, he tells him with an icy calmness. He explains that in reality, he never hit him in the traditional sense. He locked his own spine with the erector spinae and tensed his upper body with the trapezius and lats. He dropped his pelvis and projected his shoulders and forearms forward, turning himself into a rigid structure. It is the same thing a weightlifter does when holding a barbell over their head. For a brief moment, his entire body transforms into a pillar capable of enduring hundreds of kilos of impact. What exactly did that do? He became a stake driven deep into the earth. He blocked the path of all the force that Campanula tried to unleash, and by Newton's third law, the power rebounded directly back into Campanula's body. It was as if the boy had thrown himself at full speed against a spear protruding from the ground. The pinnacle of martial arts, using the opponent's strength. Ki remains standing, impeccable despite the wounds on his face. Campanula from the ground understands that his own power was his downfall. The Reaper admits that all the previous talk about nerves was just a distraction. He was buying time until the effect of his technique on Campanula's nerve reached its peak. The boy smiles weakly, acknowledging that it wasn't bad at all. He admits that he never thought anyone could break his script that way. He knows that an assassin's turn to be on the gallows always ends up coming. Campanula thanks Kay before losing consciousness. A beam of light falls upon the Reaper, while blue petals float in the air, marking the end of the battle. The blonde boy admits that for a moment, the world stopped being boring and became fun. Sleep as peacefully as you can, you piece of an idiot, whispers Kay, turning his back on him. Suddenly, a scream breaks the silence. The bodyguard Kuroki hears how the situation takes a dangerous turn. The bearded boss has lost his temper, and Kuroki doesn't arrive in time to prevent what's coming. The villain moves fast, desperately looking for a way to Get out of there alive. He grabs Akari and puts a gun to her head while a maniacal smile forms on his face. Kuroki rushes forward at high speed, but Messiah Kuroki presses a Desert Eagle against Akari's head and says, "Don't move, monster." With a single twitch of my finger, this woman dies. From a distance, he simply stands there watching everything unfold without making any move. Masaya Kuroki continues staring them down, fully alert, while Kuroki still does not move at all. Then Masaya Kuroki suddenly yells out, and Kei responds sharply, "After you kill Akari, what do you think will happen to you next? Try using your imagination." Hearing this, Masaya Kuroki becomes slightly shaken, thinking to himself, "Stay calm, even if he talks big. He isn't moving, that's right, the hostage is working." Just as I predicted. A faint smile appears on his face, and while smiling, he says, "If I'm going to die anyway, I might as well take someone with me." Throughout all this, Kuroki and Kei continue to stand and observe silently from a distance. Masaya Kuroki, still holding the situation together in his mind, thinks, as long as I have the boss's daughter, I'm not finished yet. If I can get out of this alive, the garden will save me. I just need to hold on until then. At that moment, Akari speaks up coldly. "Let me ask you one thing. Why did you kill my father? Was he planning to dissolve the clan?" Hearing this, Masaya Kuroki erupts in anger and shouts back, "You've got to be kidding me! The Shido name that we risked our lives to protect. You think we'd let it be thrown away? For a single brat like you?" Akari closes her eyes for a moment, recalling fragments of memories of her father. When she opens them again, her expression is filled with anger. In a sudden burst of resolve, she tears the fabric along the side of her dress and, in a swift motion, launches a precise strike to Masaya Kuroki's lower abdomen groin area while simultaneously drawing a small knife from her side and attacking with it. As she strikes, she declares firmly, "I'll have you take responsibility." Masaya Kuroki aims his gun directly at her, preparing to fire and finish her, but at that exact moment, a sharp scream echoes through the scene. Suddenly, the gun slips from his hand and falls to the ground. In the same instant, we notice a small blade embedded in his hand, revealing that something precise and sudden has struck him. Seeing this, Masaya Kuroki is completely shocked. He turns his gaze to the side and, in his mind, realizes with disbelief, he severed the tendon in my index finger with perfect precision. Taking advantage of his moment of distraction, Akari immediately pushes forward. Without wasting a single second, she drives her knife into action again, stabbing him in the stomach with force. Masaya Kuroki collapses to the ground from the impact. Looking down at him, Akari speaks firmly, "Don't worry after." Seeing this, I won't let the signboard come down, the Shido clan that my father and all of you risked your lives for. I won't throw it away for my own happiness. With those words, she lets her hair fall loose. Her expression calm but resolute and declares, "That is my responsibility." In the background, we can also see Kuroki's shadow, Akari's loyal servant, observing everything silently. Akari continues speaking, as the daughter of Shido. At that moment, Masaya Kuroki, lying on the ground, weakly admits, "I knew I couldn't beat you, boss." After that, the situation slowly begins to settle as people start to disperse and leave the area. Kei, who had been watching everything unfold from a standing position, silently observes the aftermath. The scene then shifts forward in time. After a few days, we are shown Akari alongside many members of her clan, all gathered together to pay respect to her father. The atmosphere is solemn and respectful, filled with remembrance. From the side, Kei watches everything quietly. Then a person steps forward and speaks with deep respect, saying, "This is the soul of the Shido group, passed down from the previous boss." The man then steps forward and says, "If your resolve is resolute, please drink it down in a single breath." Akari calmly reaches out and picks up the offered substance. In front of all the gathered clan members watching her closely, she drinks it down in a single breath without hesitation. The entire hall falls silent as she completes the act, and in that moment, it becomes clear that she has now fully inherited her position. She slowly lowers her head and speaks with firm determination. "As of this moment, I, Shido Akari, assume the title of fourth boss of the Shido group. As I am still inexperienced, I humbly ask for the continued support of all members of the group. I ask for your guidance and support from this day forward. From everyone gathered here, I entrust myself to you all." Immediately after her declaration, all the gathered members respond with loud approval and respect, their voices rising together in support and acknowledgement. It is officially announced that Akari Shido has succeeded as the fourth boss of the Shido group. At the same time, it is also revealed that she appoints one man as the chief advisor of the Shido group. The scene then shifts to him as he speaks, reflecting on what has happened. He says that everything has changed, died, and Akari inherited the Shido group. And I became the chief advisor, the underworld influence. In this country that the garden had been after ended up falling completely into my hands. While checking the data on his computer, he mutters under his breath, "With this, I've made a major step forward. Everything is for the sake of fulfilling the promise I couldn't keep that day. Just wait. Lilia, I'll definitely free you from the garden's grasp." Just then, the hacker working with him reports, "Analysis complete. Another nasty one, as always." Seeing this result, he thinks to himself, "So it's the data Campan Ula had." The other person then calmly replies, "I paid quite a sum for that information." He thinks further. Realizing, with the Shido Group's money, the hacker continues explaining the contents of the intelligence. "It's the florist's business plan for Japan, specifically arms, trafficking, and drug distribution." He immediately asks for more details, and the hacker continues. "The transporters are involved too, but the people doing the actual deliveries are ordinary civilians. They're what you'd call dark job recruits. They're exploiting students who don't know any better. As a bonus, there was some personal information on the people being used." At that moment, photos of 4 individuals appear, and among them is the same man who was seen at the beginning of the serious events. The man observing everything quietly remarks, "If you're going to stir up that nest, be careful. The money moving through it is on an entirely different level. I doubt the garden entrusted every part of this operation to an outsider like Masaya Kuroki. There should be another funeral flower managing these transactions, most likely one of the flowers from the highest ranks." After this, the scene shifts. We see him outside a school, dressed in a school uniform, walking inside as if nothing has changed. Calmly, he says, "It's been a while.